Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Akala! Hello.
How you doing, you all right?
I'm very well, thanks for coming on the show.
No worries.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
No, thank
I've
you.
been trying to get you on the show for a while.
Yeah. It's just been, I don't know, it's been difficult. We're trying to get some new music together and trying to find the right time, but I feel like we found the right time now.
Yeah, excellent. I'm looking forward to it. And there's lots to talk about. So first things first, you've got a new novel out. That's called The Dark Lady. It's your first novel, isn't it?
First novel, yeah.
The Dark Lady.
Yeah.
What's it about?
So it was inspired by, Shakespeare wrote a series of sonnets called The Dark Lady Sonnets, and it was inspired by that and then backed up by some great scholarship. A scholar called Miranda Kaufman wrote a book called The Black Tudors, and obviously I started the Hip Hop Shakespeare Company in 2008, so I've always been into the Elizabethan era in general. And so a lot of the research I did about life in London then and just the Elizabethan theatre and how things were, I kind of wanted to write a novel set in that world, but I didn't want it to be about an adult, so I imagined that this woman had a son, and it's around her son who's basically a genius from what was at the time London's worst slum, or one of the worst slums, a place that was colloquially known as the Devil's Gap.
And so is it based on your kind of knowledge of history, or is it sort of fabricated, or is it a bit of both?
So it's historical fiction, so a lot of the stuff that happens in the book, so for example, they go to see Hamlet and they go to see Romeo and Juliet. They are witness to lots of things that happened in the Elizabethan era.
Right.
But they happened across a period of 5 or 6 years. I've condensed them into one summer. So there's a note at the end of the book to talk about where I've bent history and where I haven't.
Right.
The map and the layout of London is based on how London really was at the time. The accounts of what occurred when they go to the theatre is really based on accounts of what happened at the time. It was much more rowdy, like going to the theatre back then wasn't like going to the theatre now.
Yeah, well, it's so different, like, and the stuff around Elizabethan theatre was, like, properly wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, everyone who owned a theatre also owned a brothel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Yeah. It was fully part of the underworld, like, it was outside of the city. Yeah. You know, down there on the South Bank, next to the prostitution and the bear baiting.
Isn't it? Like, going to watch Wicked and then getting a hand job seems so... Do you know what I mean?
But that's literally what people were doing. It was just really, really underground, really gritty. I mean, you entered the city gates of London back then, and there were rotten body parts of executed dissidents on the city gates on the entrance into London. Yeah. So all of that sort of stuff that I've put in there about how gritty London was, about how much of an immigrant population there was in London at the time, about there being a French quarter, about just the relationship between the state and the people, it being very, very repressive, the extreme poverty and so on. All of that is based on the primary source material of what Elizabethan London was really like.
Because that's the fascinating thing, that people might have an assumption that Elizabethan Britain is purely white. But it really isn't the case, is it?
Well, it's not just that's true that wasn't the case. There was as I mentioned earlier, the book The Black Tudors deals with the black presence specifically, but also London was already an immigrant city, as much as that would annoy people. I mean, the Africans that lived in England at the time, because Britain hadn't fully yet entered the transatlantic slave trade. You have a man like John Blank, who was at the court of Henry VII, he was paid. We have receipts for his work. The guy, Graham, in my book, is based on a real character, an African who was living in Elizabethan England who made needles and was a worker. I mean, there was racism, obviously, but it's important not to project back the last 300 or 400 years of history into a period in which a lot of those things were not foregone conclusions.
So you've spoken a lot about racial disparity in the last... And obviously, it feels like the conversation has become mainstream in the last couple of years. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's good that there's a conversation. What will come out of it, where America will go from here, where the world will go from here, I don't really know. As someone whose art and music and work has always spoken about those kinds of issues, the last couple of years have been pretty fascinating. But what the legacies of 2020, so to speak, will be remains to be seen.
It's kind of that thing, like, where you can sort of... You still see with footballers taking the knee and people getting angry about that even.
Well, also just an odd thing to get upset about. Yeah. You know, for decades, obviously it's, you know, coming from America, but for decades, footballers in this country, people throwing banana skins at John Barnes. And remember, at the time, John Barnes and other black footballers were seen as sort of the troublemakers for saying anything. And there's always been a sort of strain of that. That's the funny thing, is people today will look back and say, oh, it was pretty bad in the 80s, wasn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah. You know? But that isn't what was said at the time. And even more fascinating, when you go back even further than that, to much more extreme versions, say in the 1920s in America, you realise the same sort of thing was being said. Oh, don't complain about lynching, you know. Other people get lynched too, so it's not about race kind of thing. Yeah. So there's always been sort of this strain of denial and it just is what it is.
Do you feel like a sort of a weight of responsibility to talk on an issue like that?
I do, but I've chosen to have an opinion. I had a very particular upbringing. I went to a special Pan-African Saturday school. I was politicised very early. My parents were very active in the anti-apartheid protests. I grew up in a special theatre called the Hackney Empire. I don't think it's fair that basically every black person that goes on TV has to have an opinion.
Yeah, sure.
But I think the difference is I've chosen to always have an opinion because I grew up in the sort of vein of a Chuck D, Gil Scott-Heron, Bob Marley, Dennis Brown. I never really knew till I got older that musicians didn't have an opinion on everything because all of the music I listened to growing up just had an opinion. I think it's only really in the last 20 years that music has perhaps not done that so much.
That must have been such a fascinating moment to go from like highly politicised songs to like listening to the charts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Of like, well, the fucking the Spice Girls. A zig, like,
now listen,
what's a Zigga Cigar?
Fam, don't knock the Spice Girls, you know. The Spice Girls were cold, but I hear you. Like, listen, I remember Zigga Zig, yeah? Shout out to Mel B. No, listen, that kind of music has its place, but I'm saying in my household, maybe it's just because of how my parents were. Yeah. My dad ran a sound system. It was very heavy. And so it's only when I came out into the world I realised this isn't what musicians do. The first person I ever saw give a lecture was an African-American rapper called KRS-One. KRS-One stands for Knowledge Reigns Supreme over nearly everyone. So a lot of what was pushed sort of as mainstream rap and what became mainstream rap, those of us who were hip-hop heads, so to speak, that isn't our perception of rap and isn't what we grew up on. Yeah. So I always grew up thinking, of course rappers have an opinion or read books. KRS wrote books too. Wu-Tang, you know, if you're a 90s kid, Wu-Tang used to use words like benevolent and cometh in a rap song. Like very overtly, deliberately Shakespearean language. Yeah. Even though half of them have been to prison, they've been shot, they came from one of the worst housing projects in America. All of those cliches, but they really made it cool to be smart. Or in a Jamaican context, there's a Jamaican dancer MC called Bounty Killer. You know, he'd rap about the violence in the ghetto 1 minute, and then he literally had a song called Book, 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 and how important it is to go to school. So I never saw that as a sort of contradiction.
So one thing I love about you is you're not afraid to debate and converse with people who hold different opinions to you. In a world where people are trying to be shut down for having the wrong thing to say, you're more than willing to joust with them. And I really like that.
Everyone draws the line somewhere. Yeah. There are some people I consider beyond the pale, and I wouldn't want to give them a platform in terms of debating with them. But I do also believe, like, one of the things of getting older is you also realise you're not that smart or that important. And actually, there are other people who have legitimately different views on everything, economics, history, politics, so on and so forth. And I try to own that, and that's why I suppose I'm open to... And I also think lots of people have never been intellectually challenged before, a lot of the time. And so often when people are presented with a particular set of views, particularly if it's balanced by or backed by evidence and logic and a clear argument and someone's been thinking about it for a very, very long time, I find lots of people I end up talking to have never come up against somebody like me from a background like mine. They're not even aware of the whole Pan-African Saturday School movement and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's important to... the alternative to debate is not pleasant.
But that's the crucial thing, isn't it? That we live in times where everything has to be black or white and everything is absolute, and yet...
But do we? Things are changing all the time. I wouldn't take Twitter for the real world.
Completely 100% agree with you, but what's being sold in papers is Twitter and all this, and all the little small stories.
And also, if people spoke as rudely in real life as they did on Twitter, a lot more people will get their teeth knocked out. Like, Twitter's not the... I would say, in fact, no one steal this. I've got a chapter in a new book I'm working on, or a sort of device that I'm calling Twitter versus the barbershop. Right? How people talk on Twitter versus how a man talk in the barbershop, very different. Because in the barbershop, there are consequences for being rude. Yeah. And there are consequences for being disingenuous or overly sarcastic or failure to understand or at least attempt to understand someone. And so, look, Twitter's Twitter. And it just encourages a sort of adversarial... And social media in general gives that anonymous nature where you can be rude and not get punched in your face.
Exactly.
And therefore, sadly, face-to-face, people are often much more civil. And much more aware that there's a level of rudeness beyond, and simplisticness beyond which it's much harder to go when you're face to face and talking to someone.
Do you feel a sense of pressure upon you to be a certain way sometimes? I was thinking then, because you talk about liking the Spice Girls, for example. Do you
Spice
have
Girls
like
are cold, bruv. Two become one. What? That's a rhythm. Don't play with me.
I'm not,
no.
but I'm saying...
It's a big tune.
Do you have kind of guilty pleasures that people wouldn't assume that Akala is into? Do you know what I mean?
Ish. I like Angels by Robbie Williams. I watch Friends. If people knew in real life, I pride myself on being really, really silly.
Yeah.
Like in real life, like anyone who knows me is like, I'll just be talking to you and I'll just do really silly things for no reason. I don't know why. I'm very zany in real life.
What's the way to be?
Look, you've got to be childlike, not childish.
Fuck yeah.
I go carnival, like, go Trinidad, I drink my rum, I do my thing, but it's I don't know, I'm not, I do feel a pressure to be a certain way sometimes, but that's a prison of my own making in a way. Like, I'll be in the party sometimes and people will come up to me and say, oh my God, I'm so surprised to see you out. And I think, what, you think? Because I read books, I'm a hermit. Like, have I given people the impression that I'm like a Shaolin monk or something? And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to rap about sex more often or something. I don't know. Like, I have sex, yes I do. Someone asked me that question in an interview once. Like, I was like, bro, and it was a man. I was like, bro, do you think I'm a monk? Just because I don't choose to...
He said, do you have sex?
He didn't say exactly that question, but it was almost like he was talking to me as if I was an asexual being.
Right.
Because, like, the assumption is, particularly as a rapper, that if you're not rapping about sex all the time, that you're not having any. And I was like, no, I don't really have a good explanation as to why. Like, I love, quote unquote, for want of a better word, ratchet dancehall music. Like, Jamaican dancehall music, anyone who listens to it will know, is the most sexually explicit music in the world. And I love it. It's some of my favourite music in the world. It's great. I'm not actually judgmental of other people's ability to credibly make music that is overtly and brilliantly and viscerally sexual.
But it just isn't your...
I just can't do it.
Yeah.
If I could do it, if I was Prince and I could sing, which I can't, right? If I could do all of that, I would. But I can't credibly do a Prince and make a song about head and it be brilliant. It just wouldn't work for me. It doesn't sit with everything else I've done.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I don't know, that I don't enjoy certain things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But I have, even the fact I can't say it, right, shows you that I have, I don't know, it's like I'm scared that my mum's watching us.
All right.
But yeah.
So interesting. I could talk to you for ages, man. And you're actually going to do a live performance for us later.
We are, yeah.
I'm really looking forward.
It's an ensemble piece.
Yes.
Because I've made over the last couple of years, I've actually finally got back to music. I haven't released an album in 6 years, so I've recorded more than an album, probably 2 albums. But I don't know how they're coming out yet or what the process is, and I'm putting all that together. But then I did this feature for Swindle. So Swindle is a great UK producer. We did a whole live band album with a set of great musicians, sort of jazz-inspired live hip-hop album, and we're going to be performing a song.
Nice. You're going to see that a bit later. Ladies and gentlemen, the fantastic Akala!